Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webcast. Welcome back to the Strategy and Planning series. Hopefully you've been enjoying the sessions so far. My name is Claudia Tarico. I'm the editor of Demand Gen Report, and I will be your moderator for this presentation. We've got a really good one coming up today. It's all about accelerating the buyer journey with bingeable experiences. So let's get it going. I'm going to go through a few housekeeping slides really quick. First, if you're new to Demand Gen Report, welcome. We're really happy to have you a part of our community. A little bit of information about us. We're an online publication covering all the latest news and insights for B2B marketing and sales professionals. Along with producing breaking news items and features, we also conduct a variety of surveys, launch survey reports and special reports as well. So if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Demand Gen Report today and join our community of 65,000 B2B marketing professionals. DGR is also the proud host of the B2B Marketing Exchange held every year in Scottsdale, Arizona. So please check us out. Come on down to Arizona in February. It's a really great time, some awesome sessions and speakers. You could get more information by going to www.b2bmx.co. All right, by attending today's presentation, you've automatically been entered to win some really cool prizes in our SPS 19 prize pack. So throughout the series, we'll be doing the sweepstakes where attendees have a chance to win all the cool prizes that you could see on your screen, some Apple AirPods, and even free passes to our B2BMX event in February. So registrants will automatically be entered to win every chance, for a chance to win every session they attend live. So be sure to check us out, all the sessions, for a greater chance of winning. I'm going to do a quick run through of the On24 platform in case anyone is new to that. During the presentation, you can access all of the information right on the platform toolbar. You could also join the social discussion by just using the hashtag SPS19 on Twitter and LinkedIn. And you could also see here that you could tweet directly from the On24 platform as well during the entire session. Today's session is actually also going to be recorded, so we'll send you a live link to watch the on-demand version, and you can share it with colleagues, rewatch it, whatever you choose. And also, please don't forget to take our survey at the very end of the session. It'll pop up. Doing so will help us, basically create a better experience for you in the future. All right, so with that said, I'm super excited to announce today's speaker, Randy Frisch of Uberflip. I'm going to go ahead and read his bio real quick for you guys. Randy is the CMO and co-founder of Uberflip, a content experience platform that empowers marketers to create content experiences at every stage of the buyer's journey. He has defined and led this movement, prompting marketers to think beyond content creation and truly putting their customers first by focusing on the experience. This movement has fueled an annual conference, ConX, the Content Experience, one of my favorite events of the year, that brings together over 750 passionate marketers and a North American-wide ConX tour as well. Randy is also the host of the Marketer's Journey podcast, was named one of the top 50 fearless marketers in the world by Marketo. Congratulations. And is the best-selling author of F Content Marketing, Focus on the Content Experience. Sorry, I see the F word there. I don't know if I could say it, so I'm not going to say it, but I know Randy swears a little bit, so we'll put that in the swear jar today. So without further ado, I'm really excited to hand things over to Randy. Randy, it's all yours. Take it away.
Thanks so much, Claudia. And it feels like just yesterday we were at ConX, going through some of the presentations that we saw there. So excited to keep that momentum and connect with everyone who wasn't able to come to Toronto, where we had, I think, over 800 marketers this year. It was pretty exciting. Today we're going to dig into a challenge that a lot of us have, depending on when you're listening to this, either live, thinking about 2020, or any time in the year. Our goal as marketers is to really help accelerate that buyer journey. And the way to do that very often is by putting content in front of people and getting them to click from one piece of content to the next. And, sometimes we think of that as the responsibility of the content marketer. What I think a lot of people listening today, who I know are probably more demand focused, will realize is that ownership of content itself is not on the content marketer. Ownership of content is on the demand marketer. And that demand marketer has to think about how we get someone from one asset to the next. No different than getting them to open that next email, is how do we get them from one asset to the next so that they buy more quickly. Now, I'm going to show you an area where, as much as that's our intention, we often get off track. Now, let me lead with this example here, which obviously has nothing to do with B2B. But don't worry, I know my audience today. I know you're B2B marketers, but we've all gone to YouTube to watch a video about a product that we're considering to buy. Now, in this example, suppose I was sent there through a tweet or through some sort of search that I did, to get me to learn about this beautiful camera that Sony's got. Now, even if I watch all the way to the end of the video and I feel hooked, the problem that we always see on this type of experience is what you see here. We have that slider on the right, and as soon as we're done, the goal of YouTube is to get us to watch the next piece of content. No different than what we said our goal is. The problem is, on channels such as YouTube, we do not own that audience. We don't own the journey or own the experience. You can see here, the person who came for Sony is all of a sudden being suggested to look at Nikon products. Imagine doing that as a B2B marketer. Imagine spending all that money to gain someone's attention and then send them off in the wrong direction. And that's something that we have to be very mindful of. When you think about it today, we are all locked into what I like to call the infinite scroll. And that infinite scroll is what happens when we open up our device, we open an app like Twitter, like LinkedIn, something of that sort. And we say, you know what, I'll stick around for 5 minutes. Before we know it, 20 minutes later, we are still in that app going from one piece of content to the next. But one of the things you find with that is it's not always an aligned experience, not always the same thing or the same buyer. And, we see this in every type of app out there these days. My team laughs often when I bring up examples like Tinder, which is yet another example of delivering us ongoing pieces of content. All of these have one thing in common, which is they deliver a great experience that locks us in. But as we said, what we risk here is we risk not keeping them on our content. Let me show you exactly what I mean from more of a content marketing perspective than you may have seen in YouTube. Now, here's an example of Twitter. I recently, true story, you saw me silencing it before. I have an Apple Watch, just bought this thing, and it's pretty good. I got to admit, I like it. I was holding off for quite some time, decided to go for it. So you can see here in my Twitter, I was searching for Apple Watch reviews. And as I did so, I found something that I was pretty interested in. So I went and I clicked. And as soon as I did that, I jumped into a great article by Wired, and I, scrolled to the end of the post. And when I got to the end of the post, I was like, all right, there's a few pieces of content. You can kind of see them there, the more great stories from Wired. But to be honest, my mindset in that moment wasn't, I want to click on one of these. It was, I'm kind of done with this. And we have that little done button anytime that new tab opens up in Twitter, especially on our mobile devices. We click that and bam, I'm back to where I started. But you can see that next piece here is by, I think, Reviewfly or something like Reviewify. I don't even know who this company is. But before I know it, I continue to go down. That's the same risk that we have. So what we have to do instead is we have to deliver someone into more of an experience that doesn't end. Now, a lot of you are probably looking at this and saying, well, that's media examples, that's consumer examples. We don't make mistakes like this. Let me show you. This is a real life email that I got as a marketer sent to me by a sales rep. Now, I'm not going to put out the company to dry or the rep to dry here because it's not an actually terrible email. You can see I've even blurred out what the company is. This is a rep who's following up with me after an event, and they send a really strong email, and they even have that single call to action that they wanted to drive me to. So you know what? I was intrigued. It was customized. It talked about Uberflip, what I do. I was tempted. I clicked on that, and then where was I sent? I was sent to YouTube. So again, I know you were saying before, these are B2C examples. This happens in our B2B world. Now, again, to their credit, it was a good video. I watched all the way through. I was kind of curious to understand what they suggested that they did. And as I got to the end, exactly what we talked about ends up happening. right? We end up having this pop-up. And in this case, I look at the bottom, and Claudia already prefaced this. I swear sometimes, I'm like, fuck yeah. I'm like, Warren Buffett's got 10 rules for me to be rich this coming year. That's what I want to focus on. And very quickly, I forgot everything that Danny the rep was trying to get me down. That's what we have to be aware of. That's what we have to be careful of. We have to deliver experiences that continue to allow us to find the next piece of content from that same brand and whatnot. So I'm going to show you the same thing. Remember that Apple Watch review that I did? This time I looked at TechCrunch. I love content on TechCrunch, and I think we can learn a lot sometimes from media players as B2B brand marketers. What they did here, when I clicked on their link here, it opened up, but they have that little X in the corner, right? So instead of me jumping to the done button up in the bottom, up in the top left corner, instead of me getting to the bottom and realize, no, the next piece they're suggesting isn't for me, it allowed me to go back to their infinite scroll. And they've always got me hooked with an Elon Musk article. So you can see there that difference in terms of giving an opportunity to continue that journey and not having that dead end. That's the experience that we have to give to our audiences. It's no different than this feeling. And I know we've jumped from a very tech world to the very green outdoors of cottage country. I love going and hiking through the woods. What I love about it is that you could look at this picture and probably every one of us would have a different path that we would take to go through here. That's the reality of what we need to know that our customers expect. When they come to our site, into our email programs, our ad programs, they have their own journey that they want to go through. And we need to orchestrate that. We need to understand that some people will imagine going up to the right here, some will go down through the left, and some will go straight down the middle. Every one of those, we need to have a path and a next piece of content that appeals to that audience. The problem, though, is as much as we all know that beautiful, brightly lit forest ends up looking very dark to a lot of our customers. It kind of looks like this. It looks like that upside down environment of Stranger Things. And that's because many of us, despite what we know we need to do, we don't do a good job at engaging our audiences with that next piece of content. In fact, we did a survey through Heinz Marketing, and we talked to 1 in 3 marketers who said that one of the 3 marketers we spoke to said that they were doing a good job at engaging high content engagement. That is really scary, right? That means a lot of us are just dropping people into a dead end. So we spent all this money to get them there only to realize that they're not going to click next. Now, when we look at content, one of the things that we have to realize is the importance of getting people the right content at the right time. It's not simply about an inbound mindset. It's about letting people find the content they need at the right stage of the buyer journey. And that's changed dramatically in the last number of years. Think about it. A lot of you as demand marketers 5-10 years ago probably were sitting there saying, how do we optimize our inbound funnel? And that's why when you look at content, we see so many people rank the use of content for brand awareness and lead generation. It definitely helps for that. But you can see that there's also a big rise of using content at different stages of the journey here. Everything from sales enablement to buyer education, customer education once they're over the line, product releases for the groups that we're working with. And when we talk about content, it's not purely product content. It's often thought leadership that can continue to engage us and get us over the buyer journey. So I mentioned this right out of the gate. I think what we all have to start to do, and what I really want to focus today on for us, is how do we start to shift our thinking when it comes to content? Don't get me wrong. Content marketers are always going to be important, right? They're going to help us create the content that we have. But sometimes we expect too much of them beyond that point. We expect that they're going to own content, where I will argue today that is the demand marketer, the digital marketer, the person who's trying to orchestrate that buyer journey. That is the one who needs to own the content in your organization. So let's take a look at what that might look like and why that's such a reality today. All right, so let's dig in on this responsibility to demand. And we'll start with the most basic example here, which is your website, right? One of the things that's shifted over the last while is that we engage people on our actual homepage with content. Yes, don't get me wrong. We have our brand promise. We have the hero image. We may have a video, which is a form of content you could suggest. But more and more, I'm seeing people have carousels or pop up with exit intent experiences. Some of these we help power with Uberflip to allow people to put meaningful content that's going to engage their audience right on the homepage. And when you think about that, that's not on the content marketer. Yes, don't get me wrong, the content marketer probably authored it, but it's on the digital marketer to start to own that. Now, the next aspect here is even thinking about social and all the other channels that we work through, including email, ads, sales reps. And you can see in all these cases, on a social post, often we are linking out to content. On an email that we send, the body is less content these days. It's more about click here to get to our content. The ads that we put out there on platforms like Terminus and Rollworks and AdRoll and others, they all get us to click to ultimately land on a content destination. Even our sales reps are sending out and they're linking you to content. It is not on the content marketer to figure out in those instances what asset to use. They'll be a great resource to understand what you have at your disposal, but it's on your entire marketing team who need to be demand focused to think about what piece of content we want to link them to first, and ultimately what content we actually want to follow after that. Now, as you look at this, a lot of you look at this and you're probably like, yeah, I understand what this is. This is just a nurture path. When my wife watches me put together decks like this, she looks at this and she's like, what in the world do you do? But this is easy for us. We sleep these things. We can do this stuff with our eyes closed, sleeping. We dream about, paths like this. But this is the path that we learn that is very one action followed by another at a later time. What we have to get away from is that mentality where we send one email today and we'll send you another one a week from now and more 3 weeks from now and so on. Now, I'm not suggesting email is not important, but that email is an example of our distribution plays, is a way to get an experience of content, a journey in front of someone in that one instance. So instead of thinking of that email one as the goal being to get them to consume one piece of content, your goal should be to get them to click that CTA, but ultimately end up clicking through 6, 7, 8 pieces that may follow, as long as we can line those up to be contextual and relevant. So this idea that one piece of content is not enough, you may also get overwhelmed. I'll give you a little bit of context. We did some research with our data science team here at Uberflip, looking at about 300 customers, actually over 400 customers on this research. And in that, what we found was when people put anywhere from 7 to 12 pieces of content, they did a good job at not overwhelming their audience, but also giving them enough choice that they felt like this was consumable and that they could start to do research to accelerate their buyer journey. Now, the reason that's so important is when it comes to data points like this. Take a look at this one on your screen from Gartner. What Gartner has realized today, and you may have seen a stat like this before that suggested 60%, but usually those stats talk about 60% of research is done before they speak to sales. This stat looks at the entire buyer journey. So even when they're talking to sales, even once they reach sales, they continue to go back to content to do research on their own. So it's a very simple mathematical equation that works in my head here, which is I want to earn as much time for my sales reps to talk to the buyer. So if 18% is the amount of time available, and there's going to be probably at least maybe 3 different vendors being considered, I want to make sure that I earn at least 9% of that time from my sales team. And to do that, simple math, earn at least 41% of the research time that buyer is taking. And that's a simple way to think about it. The more content we can get in front of someone, the more time they're going to rely on our research, the more they're going to trust our team. So how do we do this? You're sitting here now and you're remembering what I challenged you with at the beginning of this presentation and really saying, okay, I need to accelerate the buyer journey. I need to get people to spend more time with me. And a lot of us think about that and we tie it to the ways that we go to market. This idea of go to market is a term that we throw out without much thought. It's how do I get in front of my audience? What are the strategies? Where's my budget going towards? And a lot of you probably have different strategies in play today or going in 2020 that you're going to shift to. As you look at those, here are 4 concepts that I hear marketers talk about all the time. We're going to focus heavily on inbound. These days, much more so. I'm going to focus heavily on account-based marketing, ABM. Some of us just have more broad demand gen strategies, or some of us are very focused on, empowering and enabling and engaging through our sales organization, right? All valid ways that we think about going to market, right? Now, the problem is when you look at this on the surface, you say, well, content's not a part of that in any way. Well, let me take a step back and help you understand why I think you can actually inject content into every one of these go-to-market strategies. The problem for many of us is we simply assume that if we create content, that people will find it. You'll notice on this slide, I've put content on the far right. We're going to get there, but we're going to start on the left. And to do that, I'm going to use a framework that I love. It's Simon Sinek's framework of why, how, and what. And if you haven't read his book, Start With Why, go watch his 10-minute TED video, which is looking a little old school these days, even though he's a pretty dynamic speaker. But he encourages us to always think about what we're trying to accomplish through the why of why we exist. And I'm going to get not too deep on you, but why do we exist as marketers? In a nutshell, it comes down to growth. And you may throw different reasons out there. You may talk about generating pipeline, arming sales reps, helping retain customers. One way or another, that is helping your organization grow. And as we said, the next question that comes there is, how am I going to go to market? Now, there's many ways. I gave you 4 examples earlier. Let's continue to use those just for the time being, but you can sub any go-to-market strategy that you may have in here next. What do we do next, right? Let's take as an example, we decide we're going to go all in on ABM this year. This is going to be our year of ABM. Well, the next thing we're probably going to do is we're going to start to figure out who our audience is. We do that by tiering our account, using a lot of data to get there. That's not the end, though. That is not ABM. Tiering accounts is the beginning of an ABM strategy, you could argue, but it's not the end by any means. We have to continue to figure out how to actually engage that audience. And the ways that we engage our audience, we hit on them a little bit earlier. There's so many different channels that we're using. Some of us are retargeting with ads. Some of us are using email campaigns. Some of us are using more tactile marketing like direct mail. Some of us are engaging through our sales team. And every one of those strategies that we put out there, you see where this is going already because you see what's at the end of this line. All of those is going to link to content. I would argue, though, that you have to change that thinking and have them link not just to a single piece of content, but what I consider a content experience. Now, I'm going to show you some really good examples of content experiences that I've seen companies do where they take that initiative to ensure that they don't drop people into a single asset from any of these distribution channels, but rather they drop them into something that feels highly personalized. So let's take a look at a couple of examples here. Again, as we do, I want you to remember that we're not leading with content, right? We're not leading with the experience. We're leading with our go-to-market strategy, right? And when we do that, we will ultimately land on content where that engagement is going to happen. So let's take a look. This is an example of a company called Medtronic. They're in the healthcare space, got a lot of different products. And I'm going to show you how they go about sales enablement in their organizations. This one is not under ABM. We've shifted, as you can see in the top there, from how we'll go to market is sales enablement. They segment sales reps by product line in their case. They engage in a number of ways. The one I want to show you is how they even just use something as simple as an email signature. Right? Some great companies that help with email signatures, companies like Sigster and others. And what you can see here is they put these really personalized email signatures into anything going out of their, you can see Outlook in this case, could be Gmail. And the key is when someone clicks on there, they're dropped into this very contextualized stream of content tied to the product lines. Again, they're going to market and they're engaging by segmenting around product line. And the cool part within here, I'll show you another screen cap quickly here, is that you'll see that each sales rep has their own stream, where when they're ready to reach out and engage with the sales rep themselves, perhaps this stream has been shared in their organization, there's a quick line personalized to each and every individual customer. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Props to Medtronic there. Oh, little animation there to show you the difference in the reps. All right, let's show you another example here. There's another company that I admire a lot, a company called Blackbaud. They're doing a great job. Their focus here, they kind of consider their go-to-market a little more broad from a demand gen perspective holistically. They're segmenting in this case by revenue and persona, and they're engaging using a number of different strategies. The two I'm going to show you here is how they're using email and how they're using a bit of AI. So this is the email example here. They send out, Marketo-based emails, typical nurture, but the key is when someone clicks on that CTA, they're dropped into a single asset. But as you can see, they've picked those 7 to 12 other related pieces of content to get them to binge and consume more content. And they got companies clicking through as many as 7 pieces of content on one visit. Imagine how much faster that means that they're going to be ready to speak to your sales organization. The other thing that they do is pretty cool, and they're using Uberflip for a lot of these examples that I'm showing you here, but keep that in mind as you go through, is they're using our AI engine. Now, what our AI engine allows them to do is leverage third-party data input. So in this case, they're using inputs from Bombora to understand what's trending in their space. They can also use other integrations we have. We have one coming with 6 Sense right now. And the idea there is that they can alter what content is served as next right on the fly. So if they drop someone in here, either through that email campaign or perhaps it's just found on their website as well, they're able to make sure that they deliver the right content back again to the segmentation they're doing under region, revenue, and persona. So pretty cool stuff. I got one more example here for you, and then we will start heading towards our wrap. But this example is a company that many of you may have heard about, Snowflake, company that's literally worth billions now, true unicorn story. And they've done this by being very personalized about how they go to market. So we're back here to that example of account-based marketing. Right? Now, I'm going to show you in this first example how they're using their LinkedIn ads. Again, this is part of their marketing strategy, but the end of that strategy is that content experience. So when they're targeting Refinitiv here, you can see that is actually linking you at the end of the game here to a dedicated stream of content that's built by Snowflake for that account. I don't think you can see it here, but if you actually looked at some of those faces that reacted to this ad, one of them was the CEO of Refinitiv. So they're getting the attention of their audience by delivering highly targeted ads, but they're living up to that expectation when you click through by dropping them into an equally personalized stream of content. Now, I'll show you a couple other examples of this. This is the same thing that they're doing with ABM. Now this is a more broad display ad. In this case, they're going after a different account, being Tinder. You can see they're very cute as well about the type of click action they want in that ad. Instead of telling them to click, it's swipe right, being Tinder. And you can see, again, it's a different stream of content that's personalized to Tinder, handpicked content to make sure that they're winning over that account. One more example. I'm going to skip over the direct mail one because I'm keeping an eye on time for you. I'll show you how they're using email signatures again here. A little bit different here. Instead of just doing it by product line, again, they're making sure that that rep who's reaching out actually has a stream of content in their signature that links to the content for that account. So really personalize at every stage, the feeling that we understand you as a buyer and we are going to deliver you a truly personalized experience. And in talking to Daniel, who's run that team at Snowflake for the last number of years, he says that the deals that deliver this degree of personalization. They've done this for over 2,000 accounts now because they're using Uberflip to do this at scale. When they do that, they see deals close twice as often at 3 times the deal size, which is really exciting. Now, the idea here is that the personalization is what allows us to win. But the question that you're probably wondering is, how am I going to go back and prove that this is a priority, prove that this is something that we have to invest in inside of our organization? Let me give you 3 bits of data that you can go to your boss with and help them understand why this should be your focus today, not tomorrow. First one is the reality that this is what your buyers expect. They expect a personalized buying experience, right? I mean, we expect that everywhere. When we open up our Spotify apps, we see the words, I see the words specifically, made for Randy. If Claudia opens up hers, she would see made for Claudia. And everyone who's logged into this webinar would get their own made for you experience. That is the same experience that we need to transfer into the B2B world. And you're kidding yourself if you think the buyer doesn't expect it. The next one is people are seeing a huge improvement when we do deliver personalization. You saw the 3x deal size and the 2 times more likely to close from Daniel. 88% of marketers are seeing improvements due to personalization, reporting at least 10% lift or greater. Okay, so all rosy so far. This is the stuff that's going to win them over. The problem is that many of you are struggling to personalize at scale. And you're probably wondering, well, why is that? There's a lot of things that get in the way for us to allow personalization. These are things that my company at Uberflip have obsessed over, both in our own go-to-market, plus the company that I helped found being Uberflip, in terms of our goals to make it easier for marketers to grab the resources they have, not to get lost in the amount of time it takes to execute, the ability to truly integrate with their entire stack and deliver the type of personalization that we never thought could scale. The example you heard with Daniel, he's now doing over 2,000 accounts with this same degree of personalization, could not be done with a traditional CMS. Right? So, the reality here is starting is not that hard. It's about putting a focus on experience. And what I mean by that is as follows. Think about it this way. Think about all the money that you plan to invest, all the priorities that you have on your marketing team today. One for sure, no doubt, investing in data. And I highly recommend that. The more data that you have, the smarter type of marketing execution that you can put into play. The other aspect is continuing to invest in these channels, like distributing in email and through ads and in our email signatures and direct mail and all these different ways. Absolutely, we have to compete for the eyeballs, right? The other thing, I know maybe this isn't on marketers' minds, but we need salespeople. We're in B2B. These are complex sales processes. As much as we do a lot of the work to tee it up, we need those solid B2B challenger sales mindsets to help get it over the line. So that's a lot of dollars to spend on data, distribution, and salespeople. And what are we trying to do there? We're trying to tee them up to ultimately push them over the line and purchase from us. The disappointment here is what happens next. When it comes to the experience, when it comes to what we put in front of them, we often overlook that. We think if we have their attention, that's enough, that they should care what we have to say, or they should go navigate on their own now that we introduce them to ourselves. That's not the reality, right? The reality when we do that is they get distracted. They get the experience like you see here on Sony, where they're quickly distracted and then they jump onto Nikon. It's on you as the marketer to make that better for them. It's on you to ultimately put that investment into experience. And my argument would be today, if you're not going to do that, don't bother spending any of those other dollars on salespeople, on distribution, on data, because we're wasting every dollar if we don't deliver a great experience at the end. I thank everyone for the opportunity to chat with you today and for taking time out of your schedule. I know as marketers, we're all busy. Hopefully this was fun, and I will pass over to Claudia as we may still have a few minutes for some questions, if I'm right.
Yes, that's right. Thank you so much, Randy. That was awesome. Really, really interesting stuff. We did get some really great questions in. I had saved a few throughout the session. So before I get started on those, I just want to remind everyone to please, before you go, please take our survey and, just share your thoughts and feedback better, so we could just, provide you with a better experience in the future. Okay, let's get to those questions. Here we go. All right, Randy, you ready?
Let's do this.
Let's go. All right, first one. How should I approach personalization for my different go-to-market strategies?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll pull back, and I think I'm allowed to do this, but can I pull up a slide here? Is that okay that we went through?
Yeah, I think you're, go ahead.
All right. Oh, I think I did it. I'm going to have to click through to get here. The idea here that you saw is that the way we personalize is going to vary depending on our go-to-market strategy, right? The way we personalize for an inbound audience, we may not be able to get down to the account level. So we maybe personalize around personas, around topics or verticals or things like that. Whereas in ABM, you saw that we started to personalize down to the level of understanding who the account is. The key is to match the expectations and make sure that depending on how big your audience, that you can scale to that level. Now, the other thing, as we said, is don't start with just building this personalized experience. Think about the channels that you're using to get in front of them. This example that I have in front of you on the screen is very simple. it may not be that all of those various strategies, from retargeted ads to email and tactile, et cetera, it may not be that they all go to the same content experience. We may need a different one for every one of those channels that mirrors where they came from, their expectations, what they may be looking for. What I'm looking for perhaps after clicking on a social tweet may be very different than when I'm in a nurture cycle through email, where I'm willing to maybe click through to some more premium heavy content. So being aware where people are coming from to engage in your content experience is just as important as the personalized experience itself.
Good stuff. All right, here's another really good one. Do you have any tips on the type of content to include in these experiences to help accelerate the journey?
It's a great question. I think my tip there is more so it's going to be continuing off the previous, but understanding that people don't consume content by format, right? Like, we don't sit there and think about it yourself. When's the last time you went to someone's website even and said, all right, I got to figure out what these guys do. Give me a whole bunch of videos. Right? We say more, I have this challenge and give me the information that I need regardless of format. That's one of the reasons at Uberflip, we make it really easy for marketers to integrate with all their various forms of content and then mingle them together. So we talked about those 7 to 12 pieces of content. A very good chance that that's not 7 to 12 ebooks, right? Or 7 to 12 case studies. We may need a combination of a video that could be hosted on a platform like Vidyard or Wistia or even just YouTube that we pull in. There could be a blog post that you want to pull in. There could be an ebook that's a little bit of that heavier, meatier piece. And that could be for a combination of sharing those assets amongst the different members of your team. Different people need different types of assets to learn. Or it may just be the way you warm someone up to be ready to consume that meatier asset.
Awesome. I'm keeping track of time here as well, so I think we have time for one more.
Let's do it.
All right. What are the best metrics to measure success?
Well, that's a good question. I would say that some of that depends on the goal of the stage in the buyer journey that you're leveraging content. And it's very important that we don't just look at I'll call them vanity metrics, but that's not to take away the importance of how many people care about your content and are they reading it or not, or how deep into it are they going. I mean, that's all important, and I would argue the content marketer should focus more heavily on that. But the demand marketer, they need to understand the attribution of that content towards accelerating us through that next stage of the buyer journey. So if we're creating content that is very much geared towards generating a lead or getting that demo request at the high level, well, then we need to measure it against demo requests, other key metrics that may exist there. If we're trying to accelerate something more in the middle of the funnel, we may be getting more into some of the stages of our Salesforce opportunity stage. How often does this content push us over the line from 60% to 80%. And doing that requires us using a number of different systems. In Uberflip, we have a deep integration into our metrics and analytics platform. We're actually just launched a new analytics platform that's built on Looker, which is very exciting in terms of getting people, better ways to understand that flow through the buyer journey. But as well, you can pair that with your marketing automation platform, and even if you have a BI platform, which we do here. So we use a combination of Marketo, Uberflip, as well as visualizing that in Domo to help us understand what type of progression people are seeing in their buyer journey.
Cool stuff. All right, that's all the time we have for questions, but please keep them coming because we will always follow up right after the session via email to answer any questions that you may have. One last slide here. Again, thank you everyone for joining us. Randy, thank you so much for taking the time out and presenting this really great stuff. I found it super insightful for our own personal content strategies, so hopefully everybody in the audience did as well. Please be sure to check out our next session. It's coming up very shortly at 3 p.m. today, all about how to master your data acquisition strategy. So check that out. And again, we'll be recording the session. Take the survey. We'll send you everything following. You've got some great insights for the rest of the week coming up, so please be sure to check the calendar. Thanks, everyone. That's all we have for you today. Thank you, Randy.
Thanks, Claudia. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.